quickly on Rodrigo. He's only on around 200,000. I say only, but for football, he's on £200,000 a week at the minute. So he's not on astronomical money. So you wouldn't have to sort of, maybe 300k is a little bit north of what you would have actually pay for him. On Morgan Rogers, though, you bring him up, and that brings us to another story that's circulating today. And this has been shared via Gimme Sport. And they say that Chelsea are monitoring the progress of Morgan Rogers at Aston Villa. Fabrizio Romano has revealed exclusively on Give Me Sport. And people need to realize Give Me Sport now, Fabrizio Romano is their main source of their stuff. Chelsea are really looking at him. They want to try and buy him. And I think when they say, I know people hate the phrase like monitoring the progress. Clearly what that means is if Chelsea I feel it means if Chelsea make the Champions League and Aston Villa don't, it's something they're going to really push for. But I know we've had a bit of a joke with Chelsea earlier on in the show, but is Morgan Rogers exactly what Chelsea need?
No. I think if Chelsea go out, he's Aston Villa's star player. He's still got a little while on his contract. He's homegrown. They could say, right, we want £80 million, and that's not unreasonable in this market. If Chelsea go out there and spend £80 million on Morgan Rogers and don't bring in a striker, and don't bring in a centre back, and don't bring in a goalkeeper, those are the three areas Chelsea should be looking at. As great as a player that he is, Rogers, I'm a big fan of his. I think he's one of the best ball playing footballers in the league. I mean, I remember when he played that game against City. And he was absolutely, or it might have been Arsenal, they couldn't handle him. And that was the kind of game that he kind of built on and then went on a good run of form. But Chelsea have got bigger priorities. If they don't bring a goalkeeper in this, and we're sitting here, the end of the Club World Cup, the start of the Premier League season, and they're still sitting here with Sanchez in goal, then they really need to look at that recruitment.
Yeah, but even what good wingers do Chelsea have, Henry? What good wingers do they have? Well, I'm not saying he's the right answer, but what good wingers do Chelsea have?
I think they don't have good wingers, but they've spent too much money on wingers at this point. Fair. They've kind of got to make one of them work at least for another season.
Yeah, I mean, Pedro Neto is a good option, but they should be spending their money. If they bring the goalkeeper in, centre back and striker, then go and spend the money on.
But let's be real though. He is what they need as well. Chelsea don't need just one thing. Let's be brutally honest. The only attacking player or attack-minded player in the last 3 years who has cut the mustard at the highest level for Chelsea. This is Chelsea's overarching standard. Maybe next year Pedro Neto goes up a level. Maybe Madueke goes up a level. Maybe Jackson goes up a level, and we can change our minds then. Palmer is the only player who has hit the level that Chelsea require. So for me, I wouldn't be... I know what you're saying, they need a striker. I think they're going to sign a striker irrespective of looking at Morgan Rogers. I think there is the possibility. Listen, don't look beyond them signing Sancho and then loaning him out of an obligation to buy for a slightly higher fee. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I don't care as long as we get our money, right? I don't think he has a future at their football club. Madueke has been spoken about a few times as maybe and potentially moving on. We know they want more wide players, though. We know that because they tried to get Garnacho. And as much as I would like Chelsea to give me £60 million for Garnacho so we can go and get Cunha, at the end of the day, Morgan Rogers in the Premier League is a superior player. So we know they want players. And I think why Morgan Rogers would be so amazing for Chelsea is that he can play the attacking midfield role. He can also go out wide. And it would create... You have him and Palmer, doesn't matter where they start on the graphics, one in the middle, one on the right, and have them rotating and moving, feeding and working with one another with the ball. Do you know how much of a headache that is for defense? Now, they do need the striker, and I think the striker is going to be Delap. But them two, between them, can feed Delap. Morgan Rogers this season, 14 goals and 13 assists. The level of output is very, very good. Very, very good from him. And they need that from more of the accompanying members of the attack, not just their centre forward, in my personal opinion.
Do you think he'd be a good shout for Arsenal, Rogers?
Morgan Rogers would be an excellent...
For any team.
He would be an excellent player. The only thing... Listen, I think... It's interesting because when you look at his heat map, it's very similar to Odegaard's. Now, Odegaard's an 8, and you wouldn't call Morgan Rogers an 8, but I don't go with the position that people start on the graphics. I go with where they pick up the ball and where they play. Morgan Rogers getting that ball in the areas that Odegaard does, the way he works with Saka, I think he could do the intricate play to a decent level. But what he could add to Arsenal is when how many times does Odegaard get the ball and have a chance to drive forward, but he cuts back and spins because he hasn't got the speed and power to get away from anybody? The amount of times. Exactly. Imagine Morgan Rogers getting the ball in that position and just powering through teams and defenses. He adds to Arsenal, to Chelsea, wherever he goes, he adds a dynamic that most of those top teams don't have. Good on the ball, good goal scorer, but he's a ball carrier as well. So that for both teams, I think he would be a phenomenal piece of business. He's 22 years of age as well. He's experienced. Listen, I'd be pissed if either Arsenal or Chelsea get him. I really would.
I don't know. We jumping the gun about this guy. He just kind of break onto the scene this season. Are we not doing a little bit too much with him? I think he's a good player, quality player, but the way you lot are talking about him is like he's phenomenal and he's got a proven track record. He's really just blew on the scene this season. Don't you think we should give it a little bit of time, no?
I mean, if you
how old is he? How old is he?
22.
I don't know, man. I don't know yet. He's definitely a good player and he's had an incredible season, but I think it's early, man. I think we see what he does at Aston Villa for one more year and then.
I mean, he's been at Villa for what, a year and a half now? He joined in January last season. At a decent end to the season.
I personally don't think he'll leave this summer. I think if he does, it'll be the following summer.
It all depends on the PSR thing they've got, because apparently, like, the wage bill's dead high, and it's also.
I think they're talking about selling Ollie Watkins, aren't they?
Yeah, but I feel like it's a case of if a club gets in there, if Villa don't get the offers come in for certain players, like with Newcastle last year, how they were willing to sell us Gordon at the back end because you have to make it. You can't afford the points.
They sold Anderson and all, didn't they?
Yeah. They eventually got the right offers in, but I feel like with Villa, if the offers don't come in for Watkins, or I think Emi Martinez was another one with like Saudi interest or whatever.
Yeah,
if those offers don't come in, then they might have to sit there and go, we might have to bite the bullet here on selling Rodgers and use the excess money that we get to find his replacement.
The thing is, if they do sell Rodgers, who are they, and Watkins is likely to go, who do they build their project around?
That's where for them to figure out. I mean, I still think, maybe that would be the point where Jacob Ramsey can finally, become the player that he was mooted to be from a couple of years ago when he was.
Isn't Ramsey? I think he's even older than, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. But I feel like since 2022, he struggled a bit for consistent game time, and they'll always find a way. Do I think they'll sell Rodgers? Probably not. I'm sure they'll find someone to sell and level out with PSR. But if he becomes available, I think every single top club in the Premier League should be all over him, because a player of his profile, with the way the game's going, the fact that it's a very transitional game now, it's all about how quick you are in moments where you win the ball back. Not only is he one of the best pressers in the league, he's so decisive in transition. He seems to make the correct decision most of the time, and that's one of the most underrated assets. So if Chelsea get him, I'd be really annoyed. If Arsenal get him, I'd be very annoyed. I'd love for us to be in for him, because I think he, the title says world-class winger. Morgan Rogers is closer to that than Coleman is.
Do you think he starts in the 10 for you?
He could start in the 10 or he could start on the left. I think it'd be very interesting to see what we do with Szoboszlai at that point.
Yeah, I agree.
I wouldn't be shocked if we ended up seeing both of them start at one point and then you just have a midfield four. Because we did that at a point this season where we had Jones.
Wait, hold on, Tom. Did you just say Rodgers is closer to world class than Kingsley
At this point in time, yes. At this point in time, Morgan Rogers is closer to a world class football than Kingsley Coman is. Interesting. Morgan Rogers, the type of guy you spend 100 million quid on. He is 100%.
Based on 18 months at Aston Villa.
Based on the level he's shown this year in the Champions League and in the Premier League, and the fact that he is the age he is, you're always going to pay a bit more than him, a bit more for him, should I say, sorry, because of the English tax. But the type of footballer, he's unique. He's a unique footballer.
I think if you lot get him, I think it's a good deal because he's not necessarily going to have to start every game for you lot because you've got quite a bit of competition.
What's your problem with footballers under the age of 23? You probably think Yamal's. You need to wait another year for Yamal, don't you?
Look, no, definitely not Yamal. It's not my issue with like up and coming players. My issue is what are they coming to do? Like for example, KJ mentioned Delap. If Delap's gonna, he's definitely a decent second striker, but he's not a main man. Rodgers, I don't know if he's ready to be the main man at a big club yet. Doing what he's doing at Aston Villa, yeah, he's done it for
What are you saying? Give him another year.
Yeah, give him another year. Then, like, we don't need to rush it. Yeah, we don't need to rush it unless you're buying him as someone that's going to compete with someone like at Liverpool, which works. I think that makes a lot of sense. But to be at Chelsea, you kind of be signing him to be a main man.
You need to do though, Cunley, because if you don't get Rodgers this season, let's say the PSR concerns are real. If you don't get him this season, they sort the concerns out. You might not get him for the next 3 years then. And your window of opportunity
goes on and has another
your window of opportunity
my
might
issue is
pass.
not signing Rodgers. It's just what are we signing him? What are we signing him as? To do what? Level raiser or someone to compete?
I do get your point. This is the issue with it, though, isn't it? Like, so for instance, I know that he's a lot more money than Caicedo at £4 million, but look what he's worth now. This is one of the reasons why sometimes you've got to move a little bit earlier. And Arsenal tried a few of these, and they didn't all work. When you went for Lokonga, there was a lot of hype coming out of Belgium about him as an example. There are others, it's you've just got to, sometimes you've got to bite the bullet. And if Morgan Rodgers has another season like this, so next year, then you're looking at even more money, and it might be impossible. Isak is probably the standout example. He was always seen by, I remember doing the streams, and it might cost 50, 60, 70 million. I remember watching Arsenal fans go, yeah, but Havertz is just more proven, and Isak hasn't played in the Premier League yet. That would have been the much better investment of your money. And now to get him, you're looking at 150 million. I would say for Chelsea and everybody else. And I get your challenge. If you as a fan, if you're not convinced by a player, I understand the challenge around, are they really worth it? My personal feeling is I don't think Morgan Rodgers is a one-season wonder. I think the skill set he has, the way he delivers, the way he scores, I think he'll be able to replicate that for a number of seasons to come. He's just over the next 2 to 3 years going to get more and more expensive as he hits his mid-20s. So I think if a team is going to buy him, now is probably the right time before he cements himself as that top-level consistent player, I suppose. But yeah. I like him. I do like him a lot. I like him a lot. But no, listen, I hear your point as well. I think it holds water in terms of an argument. We have also seen players get hyped up after a good season and then not be so great a year or so later. So it's not as though you're talking like absolute craziness. Do you know what I mean?
People in the chat are saying it about Eze, which maybe going to Villa as a replacement for Rodgers.
I think Rodgers is better than Eze. I'm such a big fan of Morgan Rodgers' game.
I think Eze.
I think what he does is so good.
I reckon Eze is another Maddison, mate. Personally, that makes sense.
If he balls out in the semi-final tonight and bags a couple of goals, my disrespect to Maddison is silent for a couple of weeks.
Not Bodo Glimt. Oh no, that's his level. The Norwegian League.
Nothing wrong with that, mate. Nothing wrong.
We beat them with Marquinhos and Nketiah, bro. Come on, you gotta beat these
ones. I think Eze's one of them ones that kind of. Eze's like a Zaha, I think Eze's kind of like a Zaha. He excels at being the main guy for the mid-table club. But if he had to go,
works for us then, didn't he?
Yeah, that's where you
are. Him at Villa, like that's even Brighton, like something like even Forest taking an Eze if they can push on for the season that they've had. Do you get me? But I don't know at the top 4 clubs. Eze's not the guy.
I just don't think he's 100% there as a top level Premier League.
There's something missing, right? He can turn it on. Don't get it twisted, but there's just something missing from there.
He's got good numbers over the past 3 seasons, though.
Yeah, his number, like I said, Zaha always had good numbers, but it's more so about the play style. I just think Eze's suited to being the main guy. There's no top 4 club that he joins where he goes in as the main guy. And if he has to be like this auxiliary piece where he's setting up someone or he's being the guy to play the pass, which plays the pass, I think you waste a bit of his game. I think he needs to be the guy that you're building around and playing to and playing off of type thing. I just don't think he's going to be that at the top 4 club.
He would just turn into like what's his name? That guy that used to play for Everton that plays for
Ross Barkley.
Yeah. Like he was really attacking minded at Everton. Like he was the main man. Went to Chelsea and he was a DM for a couple of seasons, and now he's remembered that he knows how to attack again. Like I think Eze, the same thing could happen to him if he's in that restricted role.
I thought he would have ended up at Spurs last season.
Mm.
You know, he sat in a box at the Tottenham's stadium like 7-8 times, flirting with the director of football. He's like friends with his agent. Like that's a deal Tottenham. He's got a year left on his contract. That's a deal that Tottenham should be all over.
Is he going to be free this summer?
No, it'll be the following year.
Well, 1 year left. Yeah, I think he's a really talented player. Having said that, a lot of people weren't too sure whether or not whether Elise would fly when he left. Some people were. I was convinced he'd be a good player. Some people are, what would he do at a bigger club? Because it is harder when your team sit deeper, less room to move into. He's improved. He's gone to another level. He's got he has got better players passing in the ball. He's crossing and passing the ball to better players. He's working with better managers, and he has thrived in that environment. And that there is a chance that Eze could do the same thing. You put him in a team with better footballers, give him better coaches, and it's even the training can improve you, because someone was saying to me the other day, why can't Amarim train your team to be better at being press resistant when you're up against athletic teams? It's okay. Who does he use in training to replicate the athletic speed of those good pressing teams? Your players. We don't have anyone who's that fast. So you can't. When a boxer's like having a fight, they have to bring in sparring partners that replicate that individual. But if they're going up against like a Canelo, there is no one that can replicate Canelo because he's so good. So if we have a squad of players that don't have a front three or a front five that's as fast as Bournemouth's or as fast as Liverpool's, you can't train for it directly. You've got to look at new ways. Equally, it works in the other way. You can be a good player. You suddenly go to training every day and you're surrounded by the bare minimum is good, but most players are top class, world class, phenomenal. It can improve you. I think Eze is someone that someone should have taken a risk on him, in my opinion, a lot sooner than they have. Personally, just my personal thoughts on that, but.